We should jump into the Temu thing now.
That was a tough segment for my channel.
The fact that you did a sponsorship for Temu is kind of funny.
When brands I don't recognize reach out, I'll just throw them out like a ridiculous number. Yeah, if you want to sponsor a video, like here's the number. They came back and were like, sounds good. Then the backlash started.
Genuine disappointment in you. It must have hurt.
I'd read these comments in the morning and then just stew over it. That didn't help.
People really said that?
Because I took the video down. Temu wasn't stoked on that.
I love the drama, dude.
My live streaming system kind of like sputtered a little bit. And they're like, oh, using that Temu laptop again for live streaming.
How's it going, everybody? Welcome to Trail Tales. My name is Kyle Grady. I am a huge hiking nerd, and on every single episode of this show, I chat with other hiking nerds about their experiences on the trail, and it's just a great time. The number 2 podcast in the backpacking world, according to me, and not according to anybody officially. But if we want to get to number 1, what you can do is hit the subscribe button if you're watching on YouTube. You could leave a 5-star review. I guarantee that any podcast you've ever listened to, you've never heard them ask for a 5-star review before, so this might come as a shock to you, but it actually really helps the show. And so you can do that on iTunes or Spotify or whatever your app is. And you can also tell a friend or an enemy, a loved one, a hated one. Just tell someone about this show, hopefully in a positive light. But I'll take whatever you got. And that's how you can best help the show. This is going to be a fantastic episode. We have a repeat guest, but he was last on so long ago that I don't even remember what the hell we talked about. But it's going to be great, and I'm very grateful that he's going to be back on the show. And so, with that said, Justin, freaking outdoors, coming from Western, I guess the Rockies, not West Coast, but Western Canada. Dude, what's up, man? Thank you for coming on.
Hey, Kyle. I didn't realize it was 4 years. Like time flies. That's crazy. I knew I was on.
Almost, dude.
I didn't forget like you did that I was on the show, but it still holds a special place in my heart.
Oh, thank you. A special place. Well, dude, we'll have to have you back on some other time too, depending on how hard I roast you for the Temu. No, I'm just kidding. We're gonna get into that, but no, dude, I'm so grateful, and we almost got the chance to meet. People that listen to the show are probably sick of me saying this because every time I've had a guest on, I guess it's only been once, but well, I almost went to the Utah thing, which by the time this comes out, that's going to be like old news. That's going to be like a couple months later, but I almost went to the Utah trip, had to cancel last minute, big bummer, and we would have had the chance to hike together, and maybe we would have even had a chance to do an episode in person. But I'm sure we'll.
I was looking forward to that. So I think we had planned for that a little bit. Was to do an episode. So would have been good. We would have. I was gonna miss you having there.
I was gonna try to do I was gonna try to do a couple episodes at least. Although it seemed like the timeline would have been pretty tight from just the schedule, because I was so close to going that I even had the schedule and everything, guys. I'm telling you. Can you tell I'm bummed?
There's a lot of free time because everyone went to bed really early, woke up really late. So there's opportunity in the evenings to do some podcast episodes.
Anyways, it would have been fun. That's okay. We'll definitely cross paths at some point.
Yeah.
All right, dude. I'm trying to decide if we should jump into the Temu thing now or if we should save it. Try to build some suspense.
Maybe there's a lot. That was a
longer.
That was a tough little part of the segment for my channel, I guess. It's like going through that. It was
I've teased it already. I feel like we got to just jump into it. So, first, let's just get this out of the way, dude. I'm not gonna lie. It was okay. I got to be very careful here because I don't want to be a jerk. The backlash, if you could call it that part wasn't funny to me, but just the fact that you did a sponsorship for Temu was kind of funny to me. I'm not going to lie. And I think it's especially funny because as a YouTuber, I mean, I feel like anyone who has more than 1,000 subscribers on YouTube just automatically gets just bombed with Temu sponsorship emails. And so I'm very familiar with their offers and their emails and this stuff. And honestly, I had never even heard of Temu until I started getting their emails, and even on the Trail Tales channel, I still get their emails, and like I never really considered it. That being said, I don't know. So I just thought it was kind of funny when I saw that you did a video that was sponsored by Temu. But with that said, like, I didn't think it was like morally wrong, or there was no like character judgments based off of it. But clearly there was, I used the word backlash a minute ago. I think that might be kind of overstating it a little bit. It's not like, you're fine, everyone's fine, but like there's definitely some, we'll say pushback maybe from your audience on that video. And so I don't know, dude. Let's start by just saying what the concept of the video was, because I think that's important for people to understand that. From what I saw, it didn't seem like you were just chilling for Temu. Like there was a little bit more to the video. So yeah, what was the video concept there?
It kind of started off with like same kind of deal that you've had, where I'd never really heard of Temu before. Like I think my wife had ordered something from them once and was like, hey, there's this cheap kind of like AliExpress that ships to North America. I was like, cool. And then Temu reached out, and I don't know if you do the same, but when brands I don't recognize or that like reach out, I'll just throw them out like a ridiculous number and be like, yeah, if you want to sponsor a video, like here's the number. And
sometimes I do that.
Yeah. They came back and were like, sounds good. And I was like, oh,
really?
Okay.
Okay. Wow.
So at
that
that
puts
point,
you in kind of a tough spot, to be honest, doesn't it?
It does, especially not really knowing too much about Temu. I was like, well, I could do a lot with that money. And like, and my thought process was, I'll do a video that's like, as like, just super honest. I'm not going to like, I'm going to tell Temu, like, you don't get to see the video beforehand. You don't get to like know anything about what I'm going to say. And what I say is just it. And they're like, they said sure to that as well. So at that point, I was like, okay, I can be honest about it. It's going to be a sponsored video, but I'm just going to kind of tell people how it is and put that money towards investing in the channel with like a drone and
of course,
some other things. And then just keep the channel afloat. Like, as you know, sponsorships are like a part of the business.
Oh yeah.
But I think what I'd kind of forgotten was that, and I guess, yeah, to actually answer your question, the concept of the video was to just buy, like, get a bunch of Temu gear, go on a trip, test it out, and then give my honest opinions on whether it was kind of good or not. And a bunch of it was junk, and kind of highlighted those pieces. Some of it was like, if you're getting into backpacking and don't want to invest a whole lot, then it could be a good option for you. The gear's not going to last a whole lot, but it'll get you through a trip like it did for me.
Yeah.
And I thought, okay, cool. Like, good video. Let's move on. But then the backlash started, and I didn't realize how many opinions there were about Temu out there and how strongly people felt about the business. And it got to the point where I was actually like getting a little bit conspiracy theorist, where I thought, I was like, when I looked at Temu, I was like, is Amazon like sending bots after me? Like, what's going on here? But yeah, it got pretty intense for a couple of days.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, I'm sorry that happened. Yeah, like I said, when I first saw that the video was sponsored by Temu, I was like, no fucking way, dude. That's so funny. But I think that concept's fine, personally. I can understand why people are a little bit concerned, when you're taking money from them to make the video. But I don't know, dude. I thought that was a fine concept for a video. And so if I recall, I did read through some of the comments at the time, and then I know you took the video down eventually, and I ended up watching your live stream where you addressed it kind of, and it seemed like for those that aren't familiar with this whole saga, it wasn't like people were just like being like, oh, like, fuck you, Justin, like, you suck, like, you piece of shit. Like, it seemed like the commenters were very, they meant well, a lot of them, and it was more of like a genuine disappointment in you, which I can imagine probably stung even more than if they were just like, oh, like, you chilling piece of shit. Like, I know for myself, if I made a video and like the same people that are always commenting on my videos and supporting me are like, hey, Kyle, like, you let us down, I know that would like definitely hurt. And so take me through, the response from your audience initially, and, how it made you feel, and, just your initial reflections. It must have hurt.
I think you nailed it. It's that like it was people that like I recognize, I see in all my videos commenting, being like, "Hey, like this seems out of nowhere. Like we're not like stoked that you did this." And I was reading those comments while being on a backcountry ski touring trip at the time, so I didn't have like really good access to internet either. And so it was just like I'd read these comments in the morning and then just like be able to stew over it like on it throughout the entire day. So that didn't help. I think if I was able to just like sit down and just like think about it and then like be able to action on it quicker than not have to like wait an entire week to be able to like do something, it would have been a little bit less stressful, because I definitely felt like a lot of anxiety from it, just being like, okay, like what can I do from where I am and everything like that. And yeah, the audience reaction, I got where they're coming from. I think like once I had all that time to think about it, I was like, okay, I'd mentioned before that I wouldn't take sponsorships from brands that I don't like fully believe in and endorse. And I kind of forgot about that and went into it thinking like, oh, this is just like a mid-roll advertisement that like YouTube might place. Like I don't really have that much like attachment to it. I'm just kind of like going through the talking points, take it for what it is. But because in the past I said I won't do that kind of sponsorship. I think that's why it kind of caught my audience off guard and why there is such a big backlash. Because there's been other YouTubers who have done sponsorships with Temu, and I've watched some of those videos and no issues and everything like that. So I think it was just a setup.
Yeah. I think that backpacking YouTubers are definitely held to a bit of a different standard than like more general YouTubers, because I've also seen other YouTubers do Temu advertisements, and I remember one that comes to mind was Finn McKenty, Punk Rock MBA. Obviously nothing to do with hiking, but I remember that he did one time, and like there was a few comments replying to his pinned comment being like, you know, Temu sucks, whatever, why are you doing this? But like, you know, didn't create backlash feels too dramatic, but you know what I mean? Like the pushback, I think is what I said earlier. The pushback that you got on it. And it's very strange. And also, I'm not going to lie, I don't really know much about Temu. I don't really know why they're that controversial. I'm sure a lot of people listening and watching have stronger opinions on this than I do and are more knowledgeable about it than I am. And so I'm not here to make a moral judgment either way on Justin. But I don't know, just like seeing the response, dude, it made me sad because like on one hand, I was like, I understand where these people are coming from, assuming all this controversy about Temu is real. And I was like, personally, again, I've had opportunities to do those sponsorships with them and I've turned them down. And so like on one hand, I was like, I feel like maybe he should have known better, and maybe, I had some sympathy for the commenters in your audience. And at the same time, especially being someone else who makes content for a living, I also understand your side as well, like definitely. And I felt really bad for you because I'm like, you do have to juggle paying the bills, and not just paying the bills, but as you alluded to a second ago there, keeping the channel going in terms of investing back into it in order to improve the videos. You have to juggle that stuff with obviously, having integrity, and which isn't, sorry, maybe that wasn't the best way to say it. I'm not trying to imply that you don't have integrity.
No, we can have that conversation. Like that was one of the accusations was.
Okay. Wow. I mean, that's brutal. I don't think what you did was born out of a lack of integrity at all. Damn, people really said that. Like I can understand like, oh, Justin, what are you doing? This is stupid. Temu sucks, whatever. But like saying you don't have integrity, like that seems a little bit far. But I don't know. I'll let you speak to that.
Yeah, there's an entire like it went the entire gamut from the like maybe that wasn't the best choice to like we're disappointed in you to you lack integrity to like full on like FUs, you suck, like unsubscribing, done with you, hope you die.
Did you lose subscribers like noticeably on YouTube Studio? Did you see like negative subscribers from that video?
From that video, I lost 6 and I gained 4. So
so you did technically, but way less drastically than one would imagine. But yeah.
And that was one of the things I was kind of like juggling was like, because as I was thinking about it, I was like, I don't want my audience to be steering the channel. Like I always wanted, like the philosophy behind my channel is to like be doing things for the audience. Like my audience is my number one priority. Everything that I do from like a channel perspective is to help people, inform them, inspire them. That's what like the North Star is. So I was like, is this compromising that in some way? And that was the big question that I asked myself, because I didn't really know much about Temu, and I think there's a lot of misinformation out there based on the research that I did. I don't want to get into like the is Temu bad discussion either, because I think that's a completely separate discussion. And I didn't really go into that at all in the live stream that you talked about. I just talked about like, here's what I did that I thought compromised the relationship with my audience and why it wasn't in their best interest. And yeah, it was and that's not even to say that I wouldn't do like that kind of sponsorship in the future. It would just like be such a shift in my channel that I'd have to like kind of let my audience know that this is what's happening.
What do you mean by that? I'm a little bit confused by that.
Just like along the lines of like, hey, like if I'm just gonna be taking on sponsorships that are more just like a TV ad kind of thing where they're speaking for themselves and maybe I'm like putting the voice behind it. Yeah. I don't necessarily like use or endorse this company in any way. They just like are paying to keep the channel going.
I see what you mean. Okay.
Yeah. Like I don't think like the TV show Friends, I'm sure doesn't have like a strong relationship with like Tide laundry detergent kind of thing.
Yeah.
Maybe, like, so it'd be like that kind of relationship. And I'm not sure I'll ever go that way, just because I think the relationship that like a creator on YouTube has with their audience is a lot different than like a fictional TV show with like their audience. So
yeah, I would definitely agree with that. I know for me, I've done a lot of sponsorships on my main channel, and to this day, I stand by every single one of them I've ever done. And that was a standard I set for myself very early on, even before I was really getting many sponsorships.
Good for you, Kyle.
Which was probably pretty bold of me to think that I would, before I was even getting them, that someday I was, but that is the truth. And I think that's an important standard to hold yourself to. And I think it's even more important in the backpacking niche because, and this has been talked about, I talked about this with Dan Becker on an episode that we did last year. It seems like backpacking YouTubers are held to a different standard in terms of sponsorships than any other niche that I'm aware of, at least. Mm-hmm. And I think that has changed a little bit. It has loosened up over the years, but because it used to be, you can't do any without getting slack. Now you can, but clearly there is a line and your audience thinks that you crossed it. So,
yeah.
So you did this live stream kind of responding to things. Can you talk about that? Like kind of, I guess of course you should explain, what mistakes you think you made. And I'm also curious to hear about your audience's response to that and like kind of where things stand now that we're like a month at least, maybe longer out from this whole debacle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the live stream was just to kind of explain because I took the video down. Temu wasn't stoked on that, but
I was gonna say sponsors usually, and of course it varies contract to contract, but sponsors usually want your video to stay up for a long period of time, so usually a year. But yeah. I won't have you go into the specific details. That stuff's private.
Contractually, I was okay to take the video down.
Okay.
And I did give some money back to Temu as well. Like with that whole exchange. And then I wanted to do the live stream to explain why I took it down, where I think I went wrong, and just explain that all to the audience. Just as far like I kind of mentioned it before, but just the fact that I committed to not doing sponsorships for brands that I didn't endorse and like that was the big thing. That's where I thought like I really went wrong with my audience. So I wanted to. That's why I took the video down, and it was the audience. Like my audience, like received it quite well. They're like, thanks for kind of explaining. Thanks for taking the video down. like going through the live stream. And I and now it's like not really a thing. Like, so like a couple of them even joked like on the last live stream, they're like, because my live streaming system kind of like sputtered a little bit, and then my camera went down. They're like, "Oh, using that Temu laptop again for live streaming." I was like, "All right,
I'm not gonna lie."
Yeah, we got to a good place with it. Where like I think the trust, I think they recognize that like I didn't have any ill intentions with it. I wasn't trying to like just like shill essentially. Like you see that term getting thrown on more and more, and that trust was there. I think it's hard to say whether like there was always the option of like just leaving it up and just letting things blow over. But that's just not the kind of relationship I wanted to have with my audience. I didn't want to just kind of like let it blow over, even though it probably would have. And now I have a good relationship with them. And
yeah, man.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think you ever had a bad relationship with them. I think they just called you out. And again, it's tricky because I feel like for maybe those listening and watching who were not aware of this whole thing, which again is we're going to move on from this in a second because it's not like that big a deal, obviously, but it's fascinating. And my listeners know I love the drama, dude. I'm glad that you're here for it. Anyways, I feel like to some of those listening and watching that aren't familiar with this whole situation, they might be like, what's the big deal? And I think that when you give this context to kind of like what you were thinking in terms of like using the gear in the video and like trying not to, like fully endorse, I don't know. I think just when you give the full context of the situation, it doesn't even sound that controversial. So a lot of people that are hearing this might be like, why was your audience even mad at you? So I don't know.
And when you look at the numbers, like the subscribers lost, like only 2 subscribers net loss, like it's still at a 70% thumbs up to thumbs down ratio, which is the worst out of all my videos. So that was kind of like a signal. But I think it wasn't the majority of people who had an issue with it, but I think for me, that didn't really matter. It was like the fact that like the important people that I communicated with had a problem with it. And I just wanted to explain myself. And
yeah, man.
Yeah.
So how do you think creators in this little backpacking niche can ethically do sponsorships, and how they can, even moving on from the Temu thing a little bit, how can we do sponsorships without being biased either, because it's like if, I don't know, I'm just going to pick a random company. Osprey pays you X amount of money, obviously you're going to be more apt to talk positively about them. So yeah, how do you balance these things? Because people obviously also really rely on you and trust your expertise when it comes to gear, and you don't want to compromise that trust.
Yeah, I think that's the big question, especially like more and more now. I watch a lot of like the backpacking YouTubers and stuff, and I'm seeing in the comment section more like accusations of people like selling out or like shilling or being biased. And it's definitely like, I don't have any like hard numbers, but it seems like it's trending up. And it's unfortunate because I think like a lot of people who are making YouTube content are doing it because they love backpacking, they love hiking, and they love sharing that with their audiences. So it's kind of like how do we kind of like, or like for myself at least to speak, like it's how do I communicate to my audience that I'm not trying to like rip them off, or just like I'm not in this just for like the money kind of thing. And I think you kind of said already, like you've set some guidelines for yourself or some like boundaries around what kind of sponsorships you take, and you've been following that since the beginning. I think that's super important. And you might mess up like some of us do every once in a while,
Yeah.
But I did that for myself as well. It's like you mentioned with Osprey, like I've never taken a sponsorship from a brand that makes products that I review, because I don't want to like compromise that aspect in some way.
What if it's a product that you genuinely enjoy though, and have been enjoying before the sponsorship? Would you still not consider it?
Yeah, like mostly because if I'm reviewing their competitors, then it kind of would like I could see how like that could be interpreted as being biased, as much as I'm able to like box things up and compartmentalize things like that. I do think it could introduce some perceived bias. Like if I got sponsorship from Osprey and then the next week I was reviewing a Gregory pack and maybe I didn't give it such like a very good review, people could be like, well, that's because Osprey sponsored you last week.
That's fair. This is tricky for me because I think everything you're saying there is totally valid. But at the same time, I've always felt like as long as I genuinely enjoy the product and stand by the product, then it's okay. And I've actually done a few for Trail Tales, nothing recent, but in the past I've done some Sawyer sponsorships, and I love Sawyer. I've been using Sawyer for far longer than, or long before they ever sponsored any episodes, and I continue to use them to this day, even though they are not sponsoring episodes now. ULA, I think I did a couple for, and again, like my listeners know that I've been using ULA backpacks for years, long before and after they sponsored the show. And so I always felt like as long as I was genuinely into these companies, then it was okay. But I still think it's okay, but I can definitely understand what you're saying too. Like in terms of it, even if you're being 100% genuine with it, your audience perceiving it as maybe not being 100% genuine. So that is a tricky thing.
And I don't think there's like a right or wrong way to go about it. To me, the important part is sharing with the audience what your approach is and why. And I think maybe that could be done more in the backpacking niche, where people are saying like, hey, this is how I deal with sponsorships and like affiliate programs and stuff like that. Like maybe it doesn't get as much watch as like a video, but the people who like care about that kind of thing are probably going to watch that content, and then they have a better insight into and how you operate, and then maybe the kind of perceived biases would be decreased a little bit.
Yeah,
it's like even you just explaining like your approach is like, okay, yeah, I don't have a problem with a ULA sponsorship or a Sawyer sponsorship or anything like that.
It's a little tricky for sure, and it's very tricky actually, because you really do have to balance being genuine and being trustworthy for your audience, because at the end of the day, that is the most important thing. You're not going to have a job if you're not trustworthy. But at the same time, these brand deals are a big source of revenue for YouTube channels. And it's like, how do you balance being genuine, but also bringing in this money that's very important in order to be able to continue providing value for your audience and continue making videos that are going to help people and inspire people? It's a very tricky thing. And like you just said there, I don't think there is a right answer. I know for me, the standard that I set for myself in very cocky fashion, apparently, before I was even really getting, I think I might have been like talking with a company at the time. And that's why I like set these standards and like made a video about it. This was, 4 years ago, maybe even longer. But I always said like, number one, you have to just disclose that it's a sponsorship. I feel like that's not really too much of a problem nowadays because the government has made it very clear that you will get in a lot of trouble if you take money to endorse something and then you don't disclose it. Maybe that was happening more back, 5-6 years ago, as before my time on YouTube. So I'm not really sure, but that was like my first rule, like disclose it. I think Dan Becker was getting a lot of slack. People were saying that he wasn't disclosing shit, but I can tell you he's always done that. He does everything by the books. Second rule was it's got to be something I genuinely enjoy. And those are kind of the two standards that I've always held for myself. And I have gotten a little bit of slack sometimes for some of the companies I've chosen. Never as much as you got with the Temu thing, but like Magic Spoon is one that I've done on my main channel, some ads for, and a couple people were like, why are you advertising cereal? Like this company sucks. And I love that cereal. Like I wish they would sponsor every video because it's so freaking good. Like, and so I don't know. Yeah, those are the standards. Are there any other like standards or guidelines you think would be important to throw in there, or anything else that you kind of hold yourself to when it comes to this stuff?
Like what I've been thinking about that, I'm curious what your take on it would be, because I haven't really like landed on any sort of conclusion with it yet, is affiliate commissions. Because a lot of people say like affiliate commissions are really going to bias things. And like you're not going to review something or talk about a piece of gear if it doesn't have affiliate commissions. If like for a lot of YouTubers, like that's not like, I haven't found that to be the case, mostly because like the affiliate commissions are usually not high enough and to really make a difference. And it's very rarely for like a very like one product. It's more like, yeah, click something to REI. If you buy anything from REI, then get an affiliate commission kind of thing.
Yeah.
But more and more I've been seeing like companies that produce like one thing or like a service providing like crazy affiliate commissions, like 30-40%. And then I'm like, is that like a sponsorship essentially? Like, especially if it's like a special commission rate for me. It's, yeah, I'm trying to figure out I haven't really had to like really make a decision on it yet, but I'm curious what you'd like, how you'd approach that.
Yeah. See, I have like some affiliate links in my descriptions and stuff. To be honest with you, half of them are probably broken at this point, which goes to say that I don't make much from affiliates. I haven't really thought this through that much as well. I've certainly don't have any that are anywhere close to 30%. It's mostly just Amazon ones and a couple Avent link ones that I'm pretty sure are all like out of date at this point. But again, my hunch is that as long as it's disclosed, and again, you have to disclose that stuff. Like that's why, anytime you look at a description on YouTube that has affiliate links, you're going to see a little disclaimer at the bottom that says, I get a small commission from these links and stuff. Yeah, I think as long as you disclose it, and again, you're not just including a link for something you don't actually believe in or care about. I don't see a problem with it.
Yeah.
I don't know. You got to get me in on some of these affiliates, though. 30%, that's crazy. No. Good for you, dude. I think affiliates are a good way for creators to make money because, people are only going to buy it if they're interested in it. And if you're not interested in it, then you don't have to buy it. And other, again, more general affiliates like the REI or the Amazon, even just shopping through that link, even if you don't buy the exact thing, like that's still a good way to support people. And so to support creators, dude, my brain's not working today. I got a lot on my mind, folks. I'm moving tomorrow or 2 days from now, and the Bruins might be able to eliminate the Maple Leafs in just a couple hours here. So anyways, I got a lot on my mind, but I don't know. We could talk about something else, dude. I appreciate you being so open about this awkward situation. And I think that I don't think any damage, as you've already said, was done to your channel or your brand or your trustworthiness because you were so open about it. And to be honest with you, dude, like, again, I don't know a lot about the ethical side of things with Temu. I do think it's kind of silly and maybe you should have known better than to take the sponsorship, but ethically, I don't think you did anything wrong, genuinely. And so I'm glad that your audience has been understanding about it. And you got a good audience, dude. I'm sure you know this more than anybody else, obviously. Like the fact that they're willing to genuinely call you out on what they thought was a mistake, but also not just jump ship. And they were willing to forgive and to hear you out. Like, dude, a lot of people don't have audiences like that. And I think, I think a lot of backpacking YouTubers have similar audiences, right? And we're very lucky because though we are held to a different standard than I think a lot of people on YouTube, they're the best. They're the best audience. With that higher standard, I think comes a higher level of trustworthiness and just a higher level of appreciation that they have for us. So at the end of the day, we're very lucky, aren't we?
We're very lucky. We have that community, which can't be said for a lot of YouTube niches out there, which is awesome. Which is one of the most. It's the reason why I like backpacking, like the backpacking niche, and like making YouTube content as well, because get to connect with people from all over the world.
Yeah, man, for sure. They're awesome, and I've been able to see this. I mean, I've always known this, but I've been able to see it very clearly as my main channel has transitioned to a much broader audience. I still have people that are like very much hiking nerds that watch my main channel, but I have a lot more people now that are just, more general audience. And so I'm still very appreciative of the people that watch my videos, but I've definitely noticed the difference in the comments and so
Interesting.
We're lucky, man. This channel, this Trail Tales is still very much in that backpacking, hiking nerd niche. And
Well, this is the nerds, like you said in the intro. Like these
we're
are
hiking nerds,
this is
dude.
for nerds.
And Trail
By
Tales,
nerds.
that's always what Trail Tales is going to be. All right, man. Let's talk about gear a little bit. So, I feel like you're the token. Sounds so insulting. You're the token Canadian backpacking YouTuber at this point, which is a giant understatement of your expertise and your skills and your experience, which we're going to get into in a second. But I love to clown on people a little bit. I'm glad you're here for it. So Canada, in case you're not aware, everybody, is quite cold. That's what I've been told, at least. I've never been to Western Canada, but I have been to Quebec and Ontario. It is quite cold. Some would even say extremely cold. And so I know you've done a lot of videos, Justin, in temperatures that I would probably not even, well, maybe I would consider it, but I've never backpacked below like 20 degrees, or what's that in Celsius?
-6.
I don't have the conversion. Okay. Yeah. You're probably more snappy at it than I am. I'm not a winter backpacker. We talked about this in our last episode. The only reason I know that is because that's what the title says. So I don't remember specifically what we talked about, but I know we talked about it. But I thought it'd be fun to maybe give you like a more specific scenario, and I want to hear what you would bring for these conditions, these temperatures. So I wrote the conversion down for this one. So what would be like a good sleep system, one that's going to keep you warm at temperatures around 0 degrees Fahrenheit, which is around negative 17 Celsius, I think. What would be, a good sleep system for that? Let's say there's snow on the ground, but it's not like you're in a giant snowstorm either, where the wind's just completely, blowing you away. And also, if you could keep things a little bit general for the gear items themselves, you can call out some specific items, but I'm not asking for like this exact sleeping bag or this exact tent or whatever, if that makes sense. So 0 degrees Fahrenheit, negative 17 Celsius, some snow on the ground, obviously very cold. Dude, what are you taking to stay warm in those conditions?
I think that's a tricky temperature because
okay,
you can actually get away with just supplementing kind of like 3-season gear as long as you don't live in like Hawaii or somewhere that's crazy warm all year. Then you can just like add some things to your 3-season gear and be okay. You're not getting into like needing to fully revamp like your sleeping pad and sleeping bag and everything like that. So for most people, you could probably get away with putting a foam pad on top of or underneath your sleeping pad if you have something that's like in the high R value 4 range, and then get like a 40-degree Fahrenheit synthetic quilt, put that over top, and you're
a 40-degree
pretty much good to go. If you have like a 20-degree sleeping bag or quilt, then you put a 40-degree over top.
I think I misunderstood. I thought you meant.
Sorry, yeah.
Sorry, I totally misheard you there.
Layer it over top, and then you're probably good down to 0 degrees or even slightly below with that kind of setup.
How about clothing? What are you wearing for a situation like this? Are you, because there's always a debate. I feel like some people are like, you sleep warm when you're naked, which sounds like bullshit to me. And then some people are like, just base layers. And then other people, what I tend to do when it's cold, again, I haven't slept at this temperature, but I tend to just put all my shit on, and it seems to work okay. So I don't know, what are you doing in terms of clothing for this situation?
I usually sleep in just base layers, maybe a fleece pants and fleece sweater over top if it's really cold and I know I'm gonna have to leave the tent to like go pee or something. If it's like really long nights, then I'll throw that on as well. But otherwise, I just try to have my sleep system as warm as possible, and then I have like my sitting around camp clothes as backup almost. So I'll have like down pants and a big down jacket for when I'm sitting around camp, and then that's like if temperatures drop way below what I thought, then I can hop in that and then stay extra warm. You need a buffer. Like a buffer it's pretty dangerous once you start getting into those really low temperatures.
Yeah, and if anything, it gives you some peace of mind too. I know for me, when I've slept in cold temperatures before, like knowing I have another layer to put on if I need it definitely makes me feel better. And I have had a few times where, temperatures have been down in say like the 20s, and that felt like it was pushing it for my sleep system. And putting on my last piece of clothing, definitely, it's not a great feeling. I've never had any like dangerous situations. Well, I had one when I was naive and young and didn't know what I was doing, but since I've actually gathered some knowledge about this stuff, not too much clearly, I've never had like a dangerous situation. I have had a couple nights where it was maybe not the most comfortable, but never anything.
Imagine on the PCT, it can be like tough because you're trying to use one system across so many different environments and like times of year. Imagine it can get pretty crazy.
Oh, for sure, dude. Even like one thing I discovered, and there's probably people watching and listening that are like, no shit, but being a East Coaster primarily, when I did finally go out to the PCT, the temperature swings. I feel like on the East Coast, the temperature doesn't swing as much just over the course of a day. Like, in the summer, it'll probably be 70s, maybe 80s, probably in the mountains, 70s, 60s even, during the day. And then at night, it'll drop down into the 50s and 40s. But there were some nights in the desert on the PCT where like during the day, it could be up in the 90s. And then at night, it can drop down into the 50s or the 40s even, which is like such a giant swing. Like that's something that's a little bit more difficult to account for. What's it like in terms of temperature swings up in the Canadian Rockies? We'll say in the summer, let's say like Great Divide Trail kind of conditions.
Yeah, because it's an easy one in the winter. It just is cold and then stays cold. It just it doesn't really swing. It just stays cold all day, all night. Whereas in the summer, it's more like what you experience in the desert, where it can be in like 80, 90 degree Fahrenheit temperatures during the day, and then it can drop to below freezing at night. So it's probably like the same, or if not more, especially once you get up to elevation. It's pretty nuts, the temperature swings, especially if you're in like a heat wave. It can get really like I plan for 20 degrees Fahrenheit overnight all year round in the mountains.
That was my way to transition into the Great Divide Trail a little bit. It's been a little bit. Was it 2021?
2021, yeah.
2021, dude. I have the utmost respect for anybody who's hiked this trail. I had never even heard of it until I had a guest on, many years ago now, who hiked that trail. And like, again, I don't know a ton about it, but I mean, you're going through harsh terrain. Obviously, it's pretty cold. I know there's grizzly bears, like fucking. Isn't it a lot of it route finding too? Am I right on that? Yeah,
there's a lot of spots where there's no trail. You just are on a ridge with no defined trail, or you're like walking through more like grassy, marshy areas with no trail, and you're just trying to stay on track.
So this trail, from the little I do know about it, I don't know if I would have the balls to do this one. I'm not going to lie. I got no problem saying that on the record. So take us through, again, it's been talked about a little bit, but it's been a long time. So take us through an overview of the trail, and then I want to hear about your experience a little bit, because nuts, dude. Absolutely insane trail.
It has been a while, so my memory's getting foggier and foggier. I'm gonna have to
just like generally, roughly how long it took you. I'm curious about like resupply and stuff like that.
So for most people out there, if they're familiar with the CDT, then they know where the start of the GDT is. So it starts at the end of the CDT at the Canada-US border, and then heads 700 miles north. Just basically ends in the middle of 700 miles, ends in the middle of nowhere. Like the ending is probably the craziest part of the entire thing. Like you end this 700 mile hike, the last like 100 and something miles you have no resupply. So a lot of people have to do like 10-day plus food carries. And then when you finish the trail at the terminus, you have a 60, 70 mile road to walk out, a forestry road to walk out of before you get to the closest highway. So when you're done, you're not really done. You still got another day or two to finish it off, which is kind of a weird finish to a long trail like that. It's not the most exciting thing, but it's a lot of people do it in like 30 to 50 days. I think that like 40 to 50 days is probably the norm. I was at my normal like corporate job at the time, so I did it a little bit faster in 36 days, which averages like just under 30 miles a day. I think it was like 37 kilometers.
Whew.
So it's big days and big terrain, like 120,000 feet of elevation gain over the course of the trail. It's a lot. Yeah.
How many, again, I'm sure you don't know the exact numbers. You wouldn't be expected to, but like roughly how many people, I can't imagine there's many people doing this trail. Like, did you see other thru hikers out there? If so, how many? Like, how common was it? Like, or were you just by yourself for most of this?
When I did it, I think like there's like 50, 60 people who started it, and then like a couple dozen who finished it. I ran into, I can count on one hand, like it was probably 5 or less people.
That's insane,
that I actually like ran into. And I only actually hiked with, like, stayed at camp with another thru hiker 2 nights.
That's so crazy, dude.
Out of the entire trail. So it's very isolating. Very much. I did start later, so people who start kind of in the beginning of July, which is when most people start, like, you can end up in a little bit of a bubble and hike with other people. But if you're starting kind of end of July, beginning of August, then you'll probably be pretty alone.
Dude, 700 miles alone, sometimes off trail through grizzly country. I don't know, man. I don't think I would do this one, to be honest. At least certainly not solo.
What aspect is scariest for you?
I don't mind hiking alone. I don't love camping alone. I'll do it, but I've never done it in grizzly country. I've never even camped in a tent in grizzly country ever before, let alone alone. I don't love that aspect. Just being in an extremely remote place by myself, I don't love the thought of that either. And at the same time, it's like, even if you're with somebody else in a really remote place, like how much are they going to be able to help if something goes wrong? Yeah. At the end of the day, you're probably still pressing that SOS button. So,
which is good in Canada. Like along the entire Great Divide Trail, probably has some of the best search and rescue along the entire thing. So, unless it's storming or some sort of weather issue, like you're probably getting a chopper to you within an hour and a half, sometimes less than an hour. So,
wow.
That definitely made me feel better about doing it solo, whereas there's some parts of the world where I would not do a solo trip just because the search and rescue wouldn't be there. And
yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
What about I'm not going to lie, the classic thing, it's so weird. Like on my main channel now, like I'm covering all these like tragedies and crimes and stuff. And like none of that stuff really scares me. But the one thing that scares me is animals. I'm not going to lie. And I've never had a bad animal encounter. A dog charging me is probably the worst animal encounter I've ever had hiking. And that's obviously a lot different than a bear. But like the animal aspect just scares me, dude. And I seem to recall hearing through the grapevine that you might have had an encounter with a grizzly bear. Is that true?
Yeah, I got on, it was like day 16, got charged by a grizzly bear.
We got to hear this story, dude. I don't know if I want to hear it, but we got to hear it.
Well, you'll be happy to know it wasn't like, had nothing to do with the camping aspect. So if that's when you're scared, like the grizzly bears will generally avoid you when you're camping. There was a couple who got killed inside their tent in Banff last year. So
yeah, dude, that's a weird situation. I believe they found her, or I believe they found their bear spray discharge too, which makes it even scarier. Again, we don't know what happened because they passed away, unfortunately. They had a dog with them. That's the one thing I'm like, that makes me justify. I'm like, okay, maybe the dog had something to do with the bear being agitated. I don't know. That one's scary, but also extremely rare, obviously.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that was the only death in Banff National Park in like over a decade, more than a decade. So it's been rare. And I think it's partly because it's so well traveled in Banff, like the major national parks, that the bears that are there are used to people, and the bears that are problem bears get eliminated. So you just have this genetic selection towards
eliminated. I don't know. That's just funny. Instead of like moved or killed, just eliminated.
Yeah. It covers all the bases.
Yeah, it does. I guess it's a more gentle way of saying that. So hats off.
I just want a big eliminated stamp on the screen when I say that.
I know. It's eliminated. So good. Okay. So what happened with you with the bear charging you?
From everything I've been able to gather, it was a young bear that just wasn't used to people in a remote area, and it was eating like berries. It was like prime berry season. I startled it, and it was like, "You're smaller than me, and you're threatening my food source. I'm gonna kill you." So it wasn't like from what I've been able to gather, because it was a younger bear, it wasn't like, "I'm gonna bluff charge you and just kind of like scare you out of my zone." It's like, "You've startled me, so my reaction is like irrational, and I'm gonna kill you." So it wasn't like stop. Like a lot of bears will stop like 15 feet out, maybe even like 20 feet out, get on their hind legs, try and like scare you, stomp the ground, huff a lot. This bear like was not bluff charging. It was coming like right at me. So I had to discharge my bear spray into its face, and then we both ran in opposite directions. And yeah.
Jesus Christ, dude. So the bear spray worked for you at least.
Yeah, worked very, very well. Like it was under 10 feet away from me, got a full blast to the face, and it like all four legs like full stopped and then ran down the trail in the opposite direction.
Damn,
so
dude. I don't know if I would be able to continue my hike after that happens. This is about halfway through, it sounds like, for you.
A little bit under halfway, yeah.
And you kept going? That's badass. I don't know if I would be able to continue, to be honest. I would probably need to take some time off after that.
At that point, I didn't have well, I guess I was a day away from like a road, like from getting off the trail. So I could have, but yeah, I don't know why. Like I'll have to rewatch that part of the trail, because I probably go over like what I was feeling and everything at the time. I just didn't feel like, I think my brain's very logical, and I think I was just like, well, I know the stats, and the stats of me getting charged in the first place were low. The stats of me dying were low, and those stats haven't changed. Like,
yeah, and the chance of it happening, getting charged twice, is even lower, obviously. So
yeah, and if anything, the stats for surviving a bear encounter increased. So,
dude, that's insane. Wow. I didn't know the full story, obviously. I knew that you had some sort of encounter with a grizzly, but I assumed it was a bluff charge. I didn't realize that it was like straight up deployed bear spray.
Yeah.
God, man, that's crazy.
It was one of those scenarios where I was really glad that, like, for the training that I've had with bears, and then like educating myself further beyond that, and then practicing with bear spray, like visualizing what I'd do if I encountered a bear with the specific gear I had. Like, because if you have multiple backpacks and you store your bear spray in different places, then you may not have that muscle memory to get it out and deploy. Because I had about like 3 to 4 seconds from when we saw each other to when I had to deploy the bear spray. So there's a lot of circumstances that went really right for me in that encounter.
Damn,
where
dude.
If it was just like I think about it, like if it was some friends that I have, they probably would be dead right now because of that.
So you surprised it, huh? You kind of caught it off guard.
Yeah, it was a perfect storm. I was coming up a hill around and hitting a switchback right next to a creek, and the wind was blowing in my face. So it was like, it couldn't hear me, it couldn't smell me, and it couldn't see me. So it just, I was able to really sneak up on it. And at that point in the day, I was tired as well, so I wasn't yelling as much as I probably should have been in order to notify the bear I was coming. But the wind and creek kind of would have muffled that anyways. It would have had to been like right as I was about to go around the corner. So yeah, perfect storm kind of thing.
Oh man, I'm so glad you're okay. That's crazy. Oh,
Yeah.
these are the kind of stories that like I don't want to hear, dude. Like,
but it's a positive
man.
story. Everyone survived, including the bear. And now the bear probably is more scared of humans. And
hopefully,
that's what I like to think about with the bear is like, maybe it now gets like live a happy life we both get to live a happy life without being scared of each other.
yeah. So crazy, dude. So we're at the end of the episode now, and I usually have my guests share their end of episode story. I feel like that one might be tough to top. But were you able to come up with another story from Trail that we can kind of close this episode out with? It doesn't have to be a scary one. It could be a fun one or anything at all, my friend.
I procrastinated. So I had a couple minutes to think about it. I forgot to think about it before, but the one that came to mind for me it's kind of in line with the bear story in that it
great. Let's do it.
It wasn't life or death, but it had like a happy ending to it. But I was on the Trans Catalina Trail, and for people who aren't familiar with that, you have to like ferry from like Los Angeles to an island, and then you hike on that island, and you're not allowed to bring fuel with you or anything like that. So I was just like, well, I'll just figure it out when I get there. But when I got there, everything was closed. So there's like no chance of like buying fuel. So I was like, okay, I'll hike to the first campsite, which was, I think like 4 miles from town. And I thought to myself, well, I'll just hopefully find fuel there. And if it's not there, then I'll run back to town tomorrow morning and then grab fuel and then start hiking again. What I didn't realize at the time was that I had misplanned the trip entirely, and that next day was going to be like, was just going to beat me to death, and I was going to be super tired by the end of the day and had like no energy. So there's no way I would have been able to run back to town and grab fuel and then hike another, like run back, like what would that be, 8 miles of running before then hiking another 20 miles with a lot of elevation.
Yeah.
But luckily, there's so many people who like just drop, like that's the terminus for if people go in the opposite direction, and they just leave their fuel cans just like at the campsite. So luckily, I was able to just get fuel, and it was kind of one of those things where it's like, okay, like something just worked out. Like you just things just work out, and that was I kind of look at like the bear situation the same way, in that like things just like worked out. Like preparation definitely like helps, but there's only so much preparation you can do. And then after that, you just kind of hope for the best.
Yeah, man. Well, I'm glad it worked out. I don't know much about that trail at all. Maybe I'll have to have you back on soon and we can do an episode. I like to do episodes where I kind of break down various trails. And so maybe that'd be a good trail to break down.
It's a good one. It's one of my favorites that I've done in a while.
Nice, dude.
Yeah.
Well, Justin, where can people go follow you and find you and stalk you and all these good things?
Just Justin Outdoors YouTube. If you want to stalk me. If you want to stalk me, the best way is probably like, if you really want to dive deep, then you go follow my wife, who's on Instagram at Steph the Sommelier, who does like wine and cheese content and dip content. So then you get to see like some weird stuff, because she posts like stories and stuff. But
wine,
just
cheese,
Justin Outdoors.
And dip. Wow.
Yeah.
Damn. I'm surprised tobacco works with wine and cheese content. I'm joking. I'm joking. Boom. I am on my A game today, folks. Dude, I will have a link to Justin's YouTube and his Instagram, and his OnlyFans. No, I'll have a link to his stuff in the description and the show notes. Highly suggest you go check him out. If you're like a big gear nerd, like I'm telling you, you're going to want to see his channel. And dude, just thank you for coming on here. Thank you for scaring me. No, I'm glad you're okay.
We'll have to get you up into Canada and go into grizzly bear country together.
I would do it with somebody else. I don't think I would do it solo. I'm not going to lie. I would love to come up, dude. I got to get a passport. I don't have a passport, but
for step one,
I got a clean record, so I can get there. So yeah, dude, thank you very much, Justin. And we'll have to do another one soon.
For sure. Talk to you later, Kyle.
Sounds good. And thank you so much, everybody, for watching and for listening. And once again, dude, if you enjoyed this show, let's try to get the Trail Tales YouTube to 20,000. We passed 10,000. That's pretty good. Let's see if we can get to 20,000. And I haven't said this in a while, but trying to get to 1,000 5-star reviews on Spotify and Apple, like independent of each other. And we're more than halfway there on both of those, I believe, right around the halfway point. So please go leave a 5-star review. I read them all. I love them. And thank you guys so much for continuing to support this show. I will see you not next week, the week after that, next episode. Thank you guys.